It is said that serial killers mostly have sexual fantasies, so they want to preserve their victims, like Jeffery Dahmer, who had sex with their victims' dead bodies and recorded it before preserving them in acid. From Robert Rhodes, who used to take photos of his victims right before killing them, to Ed Gein, who made a suit from human skin, their actions are beyond evil. Let's dive into the mind of these serial killers. Robert Rhodes. This is the final photo ever captured of Regina Walters. This is what she looked like before the serial killer chopped off her hair and took her hostage. The person who took this photo is Robert Benjamin Rhodes. Rhodes, often referred to as the truck stop killer, is believed to have tortured, raped, and murdered over 50 women from 1975 to 1990. His downfall came on April 1st, 1990, when an Arizona Highway Patrol trooper noticed a tractor trailer parked on the side of the road. The trooper approached to see if the driver needed assistance, but what he discovered was horrifying. Inside the trailer was a young woman, nude and chained, with a gag in her mouth. She looked terrified and had visible bruises. The trooper immediately took Rhodes into custody. In 1994, he was convicted of the murder of Walters and sentenced to life in prison in Illinois. For a long time, that was the only charge against him. However, while behind bars, he started confessing to more murders he committed during his years on the road. Now, he's serving a life sentence without the chance of parole at the Menard Correctional Center, a maximum security prison in Chester, Illinois. Up next is a man who went to national newspaper to arrest himself after completing his mission of killing 100 kids. Javed Iqbal. A search operation was initiated in Lahore, Pakistan, following the police's discovery of a letter in which an individual confessed to the murders of 100 children. The letter contained disturbing information, detailing how the perpetrator had enticed his young victims from the streets, frequently by offering them food or a place to stay. On 30 December 1999, 1 month following the extensive manhunt, Javed Iqbal voluntarily presented himself at the headquarters of a national newspaper, where he was subsequently taken into custody. He expressed that his decision to approach the newspaper was driven by fears for his personal safety and apprehensions regarding the possibility of being killed by the police. 3 of his accomplices, who lived in his house, were arrested as well. Iqbal received a death sentence, as pronounced by the judge during the proceedings. You will be strangled to death in front of the parents whose children you killed. Your body will then be cut into 100 pieces and put in acid, the same way you killed the children. That punishment never happened, because the Human Rights Commission didn't permit it. Iqbal and his partner were discovered dead in their cells. Authorities determined that they had hanged themselves using bed sheets. However, autopsy results showed they had been beaten before they died. Next up is a serial killer who became known as the Killer Clown. John Wayne Gacy. In the late 70s, a bunch of people went missing in Chicago, which brought the cops to a guy who seemed pretty normal in his suburban area. But as they dug deeper, they found clues that hinted at something much darker going on. The suspect was John Wayne Gacy, a local contractor and community volunteer who was later revealed to be one of the most prolific serial killers in U.S. history. When the police went through Gacy's house, they stumbled upon some really unsettling evidence. A thorough log of his crimes, complete with photos of the crime scenes and the bodies of his victims. Gacy had carefully kept track of everything, noting down each young man he had lured into his home. Further digging around his property led to the discovery of multiple bodies buried in a crawl space beneath his home. Gacy was really into dressing up as Pogo the Clown and throwing some pretty unsettling costume parties. Gacy ultimately admitted to the murder of 33 young men and boys, following rigorous interrogation. He faced numerous murder charges and received a death sentence in 1980. After spending 14 years on death row, he was executed by lethal injection in 1994. Coming up is someone who is considered the most sinister serial killer of the 1970s, Dean Corll. Dean Corll, famously dubbed the Candyman because of his family's candy shop, was behind at least 28 murders, earning him a spot as one of the most notorious serial killers of his era. He would entice his victims, frequently with the assistance of 2 teenage friends, David Brooks and Elmer Wayne Henley, who would bring boys to his place under the guise of parties, booze, or cash. Inside, the victims were tied up, tortured, and ultimately killed. Corll snapped pictures of his captives, capturing their agony, and these were later discovered in his belongings. Each victim met their end, either by strangulation or a shot from a .22 caliber pistol. This dark chapter of murders wrapped up in August 1973 when Henley confronted Corll and shot him. Afterward, Henley guided the police to Corll's house, where they uncovered proof of the horrific acts, including photos and personal items from the victims. Further investigation led to the discovery of bodies buried in various locations around Houston. In 1974, Henley was found guilty of 6 murders and got hit with 6 life sentences back to back. He's still behind bars, having been turned down for parole several times. Meanwhile, Brooks was convicted of just 1 murder and ended up with a life sentence. The last story is about a serial killer who stitched a suit from human skin. Ed Gein. Ed Gein is a name that screams horror. This gravedigger and killer transformed his little farmhouse in Wisconsin into a real-life nightmare. When the police searched his place, they found a chilling assortment of everyday objects made from human skin and bones. He had turned skulls into bowls, fashioned lampshades from skin, and even created a belt from human nipples. One of his most unsettling creations was a complete skin suit made from the bodies of women he had dug up from nearby graves. Gein admitted to murdering 2 women and also confessed to digging up graves to support his disturbing hobby. He said he aimed to make a woman suit to transform into his late mother, with whom he had a bizarre and obsessive bond. The shocking aspects of his crimes influenced movies like Psycho and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Found to be insane, Gein was placed in a mental hospital instead of serving time in prison, where he stayed until he passed away in 1984. There is famous saying, "Nature loads the gun, nurture pulls the trigger." There is no doubt that humans are weird, but you cannot blame the person entirely. Improper grooming and lack of guidance create disturbing desires and fantasies in the minds of kids. Pay close attention to your surrounding. That is for today's. Thank you.